Okay, we're gonna get started, everyone. So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for coming and thank you to our panelists for being here and sharing your story with us and your how you navigated, your engineering career and what you did with your engineering degree and a lot more because I know each of you have really diverse backgrounds and come from different places. So this engineering panel is in collaboration with the Engineering Student Council, ESC. I'm Maria, I'm from the Dream Center, and then I'm gonna let Evelyn Tran introduce herself.
Not Evelyn Tran, that's my friend.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Okay,
Thank you,
sorry. Go.
Evelyn. Hi, I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Engineering Student Council. And this is our first collaboration with the Dream Center. So thank you so much for being a part of it.
Sweet, awesome. Thank you, Evelyn. And then we're gonna have our awesome panelists introduce ourselves. And Jasmine, if you would like to go first.
Sure thing. I will keep it brief. My name is Jasmine Lawrence, and I'm a product manager at X, the Moonshot Factory. I work on the Everyday Robot project, where we're creating robots that learn that will hopefully be able to help people in everyday environments someday. I'm also the founder and CEO of a company called Eden Body Works. It's a company that makes natural hair and body care products that I started when I was in middle school. Now our products are sold in places like Target, Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, all over the US, and slowly expanding across Europe and South America. Before I was at X, I spent some time at Facebook, at SoftBank Robotics, and at Microsoft on both the Xbox and HoloLens engineering teams. It's a little bit about me. Outside of work, I like to play video games, write poetry, and volunteer to help encourage future people in STEM and entrepreneurship. That's me.
Thank you, Jasmine. And then if we could have Marianne go next.
Hi everyone, I'm Marianne. I'm a chemical engineer at NASA Jet Propulsion Lab, and I've gone to work on the latest Mars Perseverance rover that's actually landing in less than a month on Mars, and I also work on different projects for the International Space Station as well. I've been at JPL for about 5 years, and then before that I was an intern at Kennedy Space Center. You can see it in my picture there. It's the Beagle Assembly Building. And I used to intern there for the summer, and that was like the best internship ever. And now I'm here at JPL in California back home. And outside of work, I like to snowboard. I love snowboarding. I go every year. I have a season pass, and it's one of my favorite things to do. So.
Thank you, Marianne. Evelyn Chavez.
Sorry about earlier, Tran. Evelyn and I are both in the Society of Women Engineers, so we often get confused in there. But my name is Evelyn Chavez. I am a fourth-year industrial engineering major. I am the current middle school outreach chair for the Society of Women Engineers. Some of the projects that I've worked on, which are programs within our chapter, is So Educational, which has actually won an award from one of our national competitions. I help students learn about engineering. I go to underrepresented neighborhoods, usually in places where the students don't necessarily know English because they had just immigrated to the United States, and I teach them about engineering and show them that anyone could be an engineer. Outside of the things that I do through school, I really like knitting, and I like writing stories and making tea.
That's awesome. Thank you, Evelyn. And lastly, we have Fernando.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fernando Ceballos. I am a licensed professional civil engineer in the state of Texas. I work for a company called Pape Dawson Engineers, where I work as a project manager. The work that I do is essentially taking raw pieces of property and building something on it. Some of the things that I'm working on right now are some high schools, some big box development, a few restaurants, and then sometimes we work with mixed use development as far as trying to build in apartments, townhomes, and houses, and just making all that work together. On the side, I also do coaching. I work with different clients as STEM professionals, specifically focusing on mindset developing, and just focusing on making sure that they're bringing the right skill sets to grow in their career path. I'm also involved with an organization called Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, SHIP. I'm the local chapter president there. I've been part of SHIP for about 7 years or so. And on the side, as far as not working, I really enjoy Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But with COVID, things haven't really been, playing out in my favor when it comes to that.
That's super awesome. Thank you all for sharing. All of you are super inspirational to me, which is one of the reasons why I reached out to you all for this panel, because the things that you guys do is really awesome and super cool. So thank you for coming and being a panelist and sharing this information with us. And we hope that our students can get something out of this, which I'm sure they can with such awesome people like you guys. So with that, we're gonna get started with our questions. And so our first question is, what has been one of your biggest challenges as you pursue your academic and career goals? And then I don't know if you guys wanted to go in the order that you guys introduced, or however you guys would like to.
Sure, I'm happy to start. Definitely one of the challenges for me was trying to understand how far in formal education was necessary for me to be effective in contributing to my skills. Unlike Fernando, something like civil engineering has a very clear path. You get certified, you get licensed, and then you go do it. But with computer science, you could teach yourself a language on an internet, like online, like an online class, and then suddenly be writing software for like a major tech company, like within weeks. So it's hard for me as a person who's interested in working in robotics to know if I had to go all the way up to getting a PhD in robotics before someone would hire me to work on robots. Yeah, I met some PhDs. I worked in research initially when I was in undergrad at Georgia Tech. And I recognized that I really do want to make products for people today, rather than kind of maybe figuring out all the specific algorithms that technology we would use way far into the future. And so I went into industry after school, and then I ended up going back to school, not because I felt like I didn't measure up, but because I was, sorry, one second. I learned more about kind of user experiences and all of the non-technical aspects of delivering a product that I felt like I didn't really get exposed to in engineering school. So I went back to school to, complement that education and get a completely diverse perspective on like how we actually build technology for people, understanding the data, legal, security, privacy, all of these different components. And I feel like that's made me more effective in being able to collaborate and communicate with my counterparts. And I feel like that is honestly what is valued in addition to my technical skills to contribute to the organization that I'm with today.
Yeah, I can go next. So I would say that my biggest personal challenge was my mental health. I am a second-gen American, and a lot of other Asian families who are similar to mine. I'm Filipino American, and a lot of the Asian community is very stigmatized against kind of addressing your mental health. So I've lived with anxiety since I was a kid, but I never addressed it until I was an adult, which was like, very recently, and even later than I should have. So I put it off for so long. And I think that if I had addressed it earlier, I feel that I would have probably done better in school. I would have, had more direction earlier on. I felt directionless for most of my academic career, and I didn't really figure out what I wanted to do until towards the end of senior junior year of college. So I feel like that was the biggest challenge for me, because I constantly felt, getting in my head, and it was hindering me from applying for things that I wanted to do. And I eventually got the courage to just like push through and, apply for those jobs that I'm scared to apply for those internships. So, and I feel that once I started graduate school, I really had to address it because graduate school is just on a different level compared to undergrad in terms of like the stress that you go through and the amount of work that you need to put in for it. So I couldn't really hold off on that any longer, and I had to address it then and there. And since then, it's really helped a lot, and it's making my daily life a lot easier. So I would say that if you're similar to me and you're in school and you feel stressed out or you feel start feeling like depressed or anxious, is to talk to somebody. I know it's hard to like make that first step. It was hard for me to like talk to a therapist and address my mental health, but I really, really feel like it's important to do that, especially as a student. It can be so stressful and taxing on your mind. So yeah.
Similar to Marianne, I'm a first generation Mexican American student. My parents didn't go to a 4-year university, so when I entered Cal Poly, it was kind of like the scariest experience I've ever gone through. I also entered as mechanical engineering, and if anyone knows about mechanical engineering at Cal Poly, it's rigorous, and it definitely affected my mental health also, which also led to like a decline in my grades, and it made me think of like why am I at college, what am I doing, and things like that. And it was only it took a while, but it was only until my 3rd year that I decided mechanical engineering wasn't for me, so I switched into industrial, and ever since then it's been going uphill. It's all about taking into consideration like your faults, things that are from your past that you could learn from. And I feel like there's always room for change, even if you think it's too late or something. I've had other people like contact me saying like, I'm a 3rd year, like I'm in my 4th year and I actually don't like what I'm doing. And in fact, like there's never a specific time that it's too late. You can be at any age of your life and always trying to learn new things and better yourself in a way that will benefit you in the long run. Like if I was continuing mechanical engineering, I know for a fact I would have hated it once I got out of college, but now I'm much happier, and I feel like if you make that change sooner, you'll be happier in the long run.
I think we're all on a similar vine here. I think for me, it was test anxiety. Being dyslexic, taking a test is really tough for me. I think, I'm naturally an introvert, but I have extrovert tendencies. But when it comes to discovering problems and fixing problems, I can have a conversation with someone and fix that problem. But when it comes to a test, it's you read a question and you hope you understood it right. But if you understood the opposite, well, guess what? Your answer is going to be the opposite. And so all throughout college, one of the biggest things that I had issues with was taking tests. I got to a point my sophomore year where I had the opportunity to actually tutor people on the classes that I was taking. And so these people were walking out with 70s, 80s, and I was walking out with, hoping that there was a curve. And so again, it goes back to the idea of that was being one of my biggest challenges. Even when I graduated college, as a civil engineer, you have the opportunity to become a professional licensed engineer. Not that every other engineering doesn't do it, but usually a civil engineer goes and gets that accreditation. And so the first time I took my test, I go through the process and I get my test results back. I get a 69. And so I failed the test by 1 question. And so again, it comes back to the idea of why is this going on again? And so you really have to just focus down and really understand like why is it that you're doing what you're doing, and then go out and get the help. When it came down to my PE test, I went out there and found more tutors. I kept doing the classes. I did everything possible to ensure that I was getting the resources that I needed to pass my test successfully. But in retrospect, as a student, I wish I would have taken advantage of the fact that the university has resources available for you. You can get tested, and people can give you, or the university can give you some extra time. Maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes, but whatever the case is, they can help you have your experience of taking the test a little bit easier for the things that you're going through, whether that be anxiety or depression, or the fact that you just have dyslexia and you need that extra time. And I think as a student, I had the stigma behind my mind that, if I were to go and get tested, our company's going to hire me because they're going to know that I have this problem. And the reality is that that wouldn't have been the case. But, me being first generation, not having a lot of people who I could have gone to and asked questions about, in my mind was, I don't want to make it even harder for me to get a job, going through this process of getting tested. So I think, the lesson learned there is to, if you think you have a problem when it comes to taking a test, or anything that comes to a learning disability, take advantage of university resources, because, to everybody's point here, they're critical in ensuring that you're successful and you start your career on the right path.
Awesome. Thank you so
Thank you
much
so much for sharing your. Sorry. Thanks, Maria. But yes, thank you so much for sharing those struggles. I mean, I could personally relate to a few of the ones that you mentioned. So it's really inspiring to see how you all have overcome them. The next question we have is, what is one of your biggest accomplishments?
That's a great question. I I would say, I don't know. Anytime I ship something, anytime you ship something, it's amazing. For me, when I joined Microsoft, I joined as an intern just over the summer, and we were working on kind of what would become the Xbox One. At this time, like, everyone had a 360. So I know this is 2 generations ago, and maybe it's not relevant anymore, but being a part of the launch team for the Xbox One was incredible. Like, it was extremely challenging. I worked 6 days a week for 12 hours a day, trying to finish everything that we had to finish. Huge competition, like, so much money around marketing, like, a lot goes into that. And it really felt amazing. Someone shared a photo from GameStop of someone who was the first person in the world to buy an Xbox One, and they're standing there kind of holding it and hugging it like, I don't know, like some puppy or something. It was just so rewarding that someone wanted so badly something that we had poured our hearts and souls into. And being able to experience that again at HoloLens, and again at Facebook, launching Facebook Portal, and again launching Facebook blood donations, like, and hopefully maybe one day these robots will give me that same kind of feeling of, we saw a problem in the world, we worked really hard to solve it, we talked to tons of people, and created that demand, and now it's out there, enriching people's lives and making things better. So that's from a technical perspective, probably the greatest thing is getting that out the door.
Yeah, I agree. When your work kind of becomes, in the beginning, it's not as concrete, but when it's becomes something like tangible and you can see it and you see people using it, it's so rewarding to see other people like using the technology that you worked on. I can definitely relate to that. More recently, it's a close tie between the Mars rover that's gonna land in about less than a month. That's like one of the proudest things accomplishments that I have, because I worked on that project for so long. But I would say it's a close tie between that and, more recently, we did a project for COVID relief at NASA. So within about 37 days, we rapid prototyped a ventilator right when the pandemic hit last year around April. They got a huge team of engineers and basically gave us money to develop a easily manufacturable ventilator, because at the time they were concerned that we would have all these people in the ICUs and not have enough ventilators. So they were looking for people to develop the technology. And a lot of people doubted us because we weren't in the biomedical industry, and they were like, oh, you guys don't know what you're doing, like this is not something you can just do in like a month or so. And then we did it anyway. So that was definitely a big like accomplishment for me, because of the fact that so many people doubted it. I feel like even though like a company or a person might not be the expert in this technology, like you should always like encourage them to do well and not have doubts, because I feel like if you really set your mind to it, if you get the right amount of people and the right minds working together, you can do it. So I feel like that was a huge accomplishment. I only worked a little bit on that project. It wasn't like a thing that I worked on extensively, like 100% of my time, but the fact that the impact that it's had, so we were able to get approved by the FDA within that year. And now 8 companies in the US are gonna use our patent to make the ventilator. And they're actually gonna distribute the patent internationally as well. So other countries who might need it are gonna be using that. So that's definitely something that I'm very proud of.
I'm also very proud of the programs that I've made and helped implement into our chapter at SWE. The first one, monthly mentors, where we actively go out to the schools. So this is to schools that don't necessarily have like funding for buses in order to get to Cal Poly. Instead, we go out there, we bring our own materials, and we provide the resources that they need to learn about engineering and sort of implement a new STEM program into these schools. So that was for Monthly Mentors, and that one actually won the award in 2019. And then for 2020, SWE Educational, which because of the current pandemic, we couldn't actively go see the students. So instead we created some packets, which instead would teach students about engineering, go through an activity with them. And then for any students who really needed that like more in-person contact, we also created videos for it. And SWE Educational won the award in 2020, both for outreach events. And I feel a special tie to both of them because in Monthly Mentors, before I was an officer, I helped create the current like rule sets that we need, sort of like the new implementations. And then SWE Educational, that was like from the brainstorming board all the way to implementation. I created the idea with it. I actually made the name for it, which like I thought that was cool for me. And we're still continuing with our subcommittee, and we'll be continuing it until the academic year ends. So I'm just glad I get to share all of the knowledge that I've learned with all of these students also.
I think similar to everybody else, I think once you finish a project and the deliverable of people experiencing that project is probably the most fulfilling and I guess the greatest accomplishment when it comes to that. One that I think of is a school that I worked on. You go through the iteration, it's a brand new piece of property and all you see is cows. And so you start thinking about the idea that you're gonna actually have a school there one day. And so you're driving by the highway a few years later, a few months later, and you get to a point and you say, all those kids running around, all those people when it rains, you build all of that infrastructure and you allow people to be able to, have an education. And I think from the idea of leaving a legacy behind, any of my projects that give me the pride of being able to say, to my kids one day, hey, you see that thing over there? Your dad helped build that. And so I think from that perspective, that accomplishment comes from that. Something as simple as a coach, getting a client's text saying, hey, thanks to your coaching, today I was able to speak up in my meeting and share some of my insight. I think that is also a great accomplishment as well. And so I think, from the two perspectives as a coach and as an engineer, being able to have that fulfillment of knowing that the work that you're doing is helping other people, I think as an engineer, you really can't take that away from you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for sharing again. I think I can't speak for everyone, but I know me, I've always wanted to, make an impact to my community, make an impact to society, and which is one of the reasons why I am a civil engineer because of that. So yeah, I can't speak for everyone, but I know for me, I do wish to make those types of accomplishments just like all of you and, affect somebody's life the same way that you guys do. So thank you. We're going to move on to our next question. How did you find your niche or passion in engineering industry? And can you give our students some tips and advice on how they can work or find theirs?
Sure thing. For me, I saw this movie when I was a kid called Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams. It's just a movie about a robot that goes from being this super special robot to officially 200 years later being declared human. Sorry, should have said spoiler beforehand. So for me, someone who's interested in science, robotics just felt like something that was still imaginary, still felt like something that wasn't figured out yet. They're not ubiquitous, like there aren't robots washing our cars and doing our dishes and things like that. So it felt far enough away where I felt like I would have the freedom to invent it and to do whatever I wanted without someone being able to tell me how to do my job. That's just a type of independent person I want to be, and that could be a result of both of my parents being military sergeants and being very strict and formal about almost everything. So being able to have the independence to just do whatever I wanted in my job and to focus on helping people was for me. You can listen to this in my TEDx talk, but for me, the three things that you can use are identity, experience, and exposure, right? Understanding, maybe like Evelyn said, when she changed her major, what you like, what you don't like, understanding what makes you happy and what you feel like you're actually being pressured into, knowing who you are and what your favorite things are, will really help you make decisions that you can live with for the rest of your lives, for the rest of your life. Experience, if you have an opportunity to do co-ops or internships or go to talks like this and hear about other people, it's a great way for you to gain like practical experience in knowing if that thing is going to be for you. And then lastly, exposure. Being able to travel and see the world differently will show you what types of problems there are out there. It could be, it doesn't have to be like to a whole nother country, but it could just be the next town over. Or again, I'm super impressed by Evelyn, going into communities that are different than the ones that you have access to and seeing what their lives are about will really inspire you to figure out where in the world do I want to make a change, or where in the world do I see a need that, you know, might not be something that affects me, but affects other people, and how can you help elevate and lift them up. So I think Evelyn is living it 100%. She's totally my inspiration on this panel today, and I'll hand it off.
Yeah, I totally agree. Think about what you like in your identity. Think about why you're doing it. Like everyone has a different goal. I know some people who are in engineering, sometimes they just want to make money, but a lot of people are in it to make societal impact. And think about also what makes you genuinely curious. If you're genuinely curious about something like a specific subject, or you're passionate about something, if you can make that and incorporate that into your career, then that makes it so much easier. For me, it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do. I didn't know, I knew I liked chemistry, so I actually started as a chemistry major. But then I started to learn more about engineering, and it really sparked my interest, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it until later in college, until I tried like different internships. So I had to explore to figure out what I wanted, because not everyone knows what they want to do like right off the bat. Not everyone, some people just know from like when they're kids, right? So I have coworkers who know they wanted to work for NASA since they were a kid in like space camp, but I didn't know that it was something I would end up loving. So being open to exploring and never knowing until you try it, and then also trying to find a mentor, trying to find role models, because if you can look up to these people, you can see that you're capable of doing it yourself. So I use a lot of mentorship at my work to figure out where I want my career to go, because I'm still an early engineer. I can go a lot of different directions with chemical engineering. It's very versatile. So I'm still figuring it out. Like, even though, you know, I'm out of college, you still have to figure that out when during your career, because there's always like a pathway that you have to choose eventually. So I think it's so important to be open, and always be open to like learning new things, and like maybe trying something out you're not comfortable with. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
First, Jasmine, thank you for that hype up. Second, I'm not currently in industry, but I do have like memories of like switching into a different major at least. When it comes to other students, I suggest first year going into like every club that you can find. Through those, you can usually find people who are really passionate about what they're doing. They're probably already knowledgeable about it. So you ask questions, you work on projects. Like for me, when I was still doing mechanical, I went into QL Plus, which is Quality of Life Plus on campus. It's more oriented for like biomedical engineers who like work with people, and I thought that would be interesting. I did some other fun ones like Writers Collective, like maybe engineering just wasn't my thing, and I wanted to become a writer. And like working through those, it was because of the Society of Women Engineers that I learned I really like managing and mostly project management. So like being at the head and like managing my like subcommittees. So telling them like you need to be this, you need to do this, delegating your separate projects and different tasks that you need to be able to make in a certain amount of time. And this is just me talking about industrial at this point, but finding those clubs, because that will be the easiest way and the cheapest way for you to find what you want to do. You can't always like do a side class because those might be costly, and not everyone has those resources, not everyone has the money for that. So if you do, you can easily do that, like jump into a class that you find entertaining. But if you don't have that, you can easily hop into a club meeting, talk to a friend who's in a different major, make friends in your DE classes that have different majors, so you can figure out like, maybe this is what I like, maybe this is what I like. So then when you are in school, you can make those changes and be ready for when you go into industry.
I think Evelyn stole my notes. The thing that I say to a lot of people, it's find your why, find your tribe, and fail and pivot if needed. I think if you can just focus on those things and find the right people, to Evelyn's point, you're going to be all right. As an engineer, the way I found the things that I wanted to focus on was going and join organizations, finding the mentors. Back to Marianne's point, those mentors are going to be able to help you identify what you like and what you don't like, and also find those blind spots. I think you don't know what you don't know. And so when I talk to a lot of students, people who are just starting their careers, or even just trying about to graduate high school, you're 17, 18 years old and you're being told, hey, pick what you want to pick for the rest of your life. And that's extremely difficult. You could be 20 years old and starting your career and you're like, crap, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. And so I like to tell people, think of life in 5-year intervals. And so that's a random number that I like to use. And it's because it usually gives you some fluctuation on saying, I'm going to commit to this for the next 5 years. And in 5 years from now, I want to pivot, I can pivot. But it removes a little bit of the stress of knowing that I need to pick this for 15, 20, 30 years, right? The skill sets that you develop in the next last 5 years are going to help you, move in the direction that you want to move to. And so that's why I say fail and pivot if needed, because you're going to make a lot of mistakes in the next 5 years. But at the 5-year mark, if you need a pivot, go ahead and pivot. It's not going to be the end of the world. People have mentioned about switching majors. It's not the end of the world. You can start your career and launch a business and end up in Target. To Jasmine's point, she's doing her thing. And if she wants to quit her corporate role or stop working in tech, she can do that. But she's making the mistakes she wants to make. And I think, if we can just remove all the barriers of saying, I have to do life this way, I think it'll take you to where you naturally want to go to. And I think from that perspective on developing your passions and trying to figure out what you like is, what are you thinking about when you're not being paid to think about things? And I think naturally, your life should go in that direction. So that's how I did it, as far as trying to find what I really, really enjoy.
Great, thank you so much. I really like that. Find your why, find your drive, fail, and pivot if needed. That's really good. Yes, honestly, like that was super helpful, especially to me personally. I think I can relate so much again to just not knowing and having no direction. So I really appreciate that. The other question we have is, What have been some barriers you may have faced as a BIPOC, and how did you deal with them? For example, how did you deal with imposter syndrome?
Oh man, the heavy question, it has finally arrived. Yeah, I honestly don't want to scare you with all the negative experiences that I've had in industry. So instead, I'll just skip to the how you deal with things. For me, I got a mentor on my first day of work, which was fantastic. This person is still, even though we don't work together, a mentor that I basically consult most of my major life decisions with, and some of the insignificant ones as well. Having this mentor who is a white male helped me kind of share my frustrations with someone who grew up with a different lifestyle than me, and also just helped me like gut check the severity of certain things. And to Fernando's point as well, I always tried to find a tribe of people who were, like me in these type of cultural ways. So again, I could have another community to lean on for strength, to lean on for advice. This mentor helps me understand like when I should use what is called social capital to speak up and speak out against challenges and problems that I see at an organization. And there were times where I thought this isn't important, no one will care. And this person encouraged me to speak up and kind of had my back and said, you know what, if you go and you put your neck out there, like I got your back as well. That was immensely helpful for me in building my thermometer, right, to gut check some of the things that I was experiencing, as well as just to build a confidence that, no, these are right. This will make it better, not just for people who are like me, but for the entire culture of the organizations that I'm working in. So nowadays, like, I just believe in justice and equity for everyone. And you'll find me not only advocating for other, people of color or the other BIPOC people, but also for women and people with disabilities and people with different sexual orientations. Like, if we change the world for even one of these communities, like everybody benefits. Everyone benefits from more acceptance and more patience and more education on what life is like for different people. So it has been a challenge to make my voice heard, to find ways to be valued and respected, and being able to just value my own voice and know that when I have something to say that matters, it matters, and I don't need anyone's validation. And then to be valued and respected, it's something that sometimes you get from demonstrating high quality work, and sometimes it's something that you just have to give to yourself, right? And then move on to a place that does value and respect you when you find yourself in a situation where you're uncomfortable or unmotivated. So those would be strategies that I would recommend to you if you find yourself facing insurmountable challenges that you just cannot fight for or fight against.
I totally agree. I struggle with also recognizing my own value. Sometimes I look for other people to validate, my value and how well I'm performing. And it's hard, and I still deal with imposter syndrome like up to now, and it's gone a little better as I've learned to manage it. And the way that I do that is if I have a community, like you said, of women engineers that I could like talk with about the struggles that I go through. That's so helpful. There's a lot of things going on at JPL. I can't say too much, but I will say that the diversity and inclusion office is kind of having a rework because it's a problem at work right now. And it's hard to see that happen. And then it's ironic to have someone from the diversity and inclusion office feel like they're not included. Like it's just so telling of the environment that's at work. And when I first went to JPL, it was almost weird to me because I grew up in Long Beach, California, and Long Beach is very diverse. Like it's like one of the most like diverse places I've been to. And then I went to JPL, and all these people with like higher education, they have their PhDs. It's a whole nother kind of experience, and I'm around people I'm like not usually around, and I'm usually the only like woman in the room, usually the only woman of color in the room. So it was definitely weird for me at first. So I think insecurity is the biggest challenge is that minorities face because we rarely see people who look like us. Therefore, we doubt our own capability if we don't see someone who looks like us in a position of power, a position of success. And I've dealt with and witnessed sexism, racism, prejudice in academia. Like it happens. Like I'm not gonna try and hide that it doesn't happen. But the best way to combat that is, as I said earlier, is to check your mental health. Like I started going to therapy for various reasons, but that was definitely one of them. And also, I started networking with more young women engineers, and now we have like a group chat that we talk in daily, and we just vent about whatever issues are coming up, and also like Jasmine said, checking to see if like we're our feelings are like validated. Like, is this something wrong with the situation, or is it just like in my head? So I think it's a good way to like check each other and like figure out the best way to approach and address the issue. So again, just finding a support system and finding people that you could talk to about it.
At least when it comes to barriers, they have definitely been there. I have my faults with the education system. I'm not a particular fan of it. When my parents brought me to the United States, I entered kindergarten and I didn't know English, but I definitely knew more than everyone else in the class, just in Spanish. And they were going to put me in special classes because I didn't know English. Now, as like a college student, meeting these other kids, they're being put into like science classes where they don't know English, and the teachers keep going as if they know English. And I have that like big sister complex because I do have two little brothers, so now I'm very protective of all these kids. But I see the barriers in other people. I learn from my past, and I start breaking those. Whether it's chip by chip, whether you're literally just like giving it a little crack every day, it's worth it. And one day we're going to tear down those walls, and everything is going to be better, hopefully. So I suggest learning from like what you have experienced in your own classes, in your own experiences in industry, and kind of like helping your fellow people, sort of like seeing someone making a comment that you don't particularly like. I know some people here might be introverted and like they don't want to make that initial like remark, but you can also do it like behind the scenes. So going to the head of places and saying like, this is something that I've noticed, maybe we should start changing these things. Or you can probably pass it to a friend and who can make those changes for you. We're all here connected, and we're all here to help each other out. So if you do start seeing these things, I would suggest like make that action as fast as possible. If you're pushing it behind in your head, you're just going to it's going to infest, and you don't want that to happen, or else other things happen. But I suggest like, the words escaped me. Act as fast as possible. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is the idea of not being good enough. One example that I always share with people is, again, I work in construction, land development. So I go out to the field to do an inspection, and a lot of the people who are working out there, a lot of the workers happen to be Mexican. And so we start having the discussions, conversations. They're, sweating, they're in those manholes, doing the hard labor, and I'm sitting in my pickup truck. We start talking about all these different things, my education and salaries, and et cetera, et cetera. And in their minds, like, this guy's a sellout because he's, working in an office and we're out here doing the hard work. Why doesn't he grab a shovel? And so navigating those discussions is very important, right? And sometimes it feels rough in having a discussion with them because you know that they were capable of being able to take advantage of their opportunities. Unfortunately, circumstances weren't aligned for them to be successful in this regard, and so you start having the conversations about, let me go ahead and remove myself from the conversation. And let's talk about their kids, their family. How do we, create opportunities for them to be successful? And you kind of change the conversation of it being kind of negative of like, Fernando versus these people as to how does Fernando give us perspective and context as to how we can change our generational, family tree to give them opportunities to our kids similar to the ones Fernando had. And so I think those type of conversations are very important. And the same thing goes for the office. I'm interacting with all my coworkers, and they all grew up with going snowboarding during the summers, or going to Europe, or going to this and going to that. And so the stories that I have to share are not about taking family vacation trips. They're about knocking on doors and selling food to be able to pay the bills. It's making tamales and making cakes to pay the bills. And I think from that perspective, they kind of start getting this idea of like, are we supposed to feel sorry for Fernando? I'm like, no, the same way you guys are sharing your stories, I'm giving you context and perspective as to what I've lived and where I am today because of the things that I did. And so I think those things are tough because you feel like you're taking up space when you share your things because it's just so heavy. And I think from an internal perspective of how to overcome those barriers is this finding comfort and owning your space. I think sometimes you're in a room and you feel like you got to give someone else space because you don't belong there. But once you start getting comfortable knowing that this is my chair, I'm paid to be here, this is my room, I'm going to say what I need to say, it's going to help you, navigate the office politics a little bit better. One thing that I tell a lot of people that I work with is, yes, you can push for, big company initiatives, but unfortunately people see a PowerPoint, they skim through it and they throw it away, or they're on their phone, the computer when it comes to like a big conference room. But having the grassroots conversations with people to give them perspective is going to make that change, because eventually you're going to have exponential change. Because if you get your friend Marcos, talking to Julian, they start having those discussions, they're going to know like, hey, when Fernando says something, it's not just he's just trying to get attention. Something's really going on. And I think when you start having those other people advocate for you, then you start getting that inclusion because other people are making you feel comfortable knowing that you do belong there. So a little bit of long answer there, but I think knowing that you're having those grassroots conversations is going to help you, because you're going to be able to tell other people like, hey, whenever you see something wrong, don't save me, but just back me up. Because the last thing you want is other people fighting your battles, and then you end up feeling like less of a person because you weren't able to stand up for yourself.
Thank you all for your answers. Those were definitely some, really real answers to a lot of the things that, as students and as industry workers, face. And so, yeah, thank you for being real with your answers. Because we're short on time, we're gonna skip this last question and we're gonna open it up for Q&A. So if anybody from the audience has any questions or any comments or remarks, please feel free to unmute yourself or to throw it in the chat.
I could start off. I guess a lot of the advice you shared was about having that courage to take a leap of faith to try something new or something different. But I guess for me personally, a lot of like my inability to do so stems from like, I guess, insecurity or like not enough confidence. So I was wondering if you had any advice or tips for just gaining that confidence or security of yourself.
I can answer that. So I think that, taking that first step is the hardest thing. So applying for that first job right out of college is very scary. I've dealt with so many rejections before I was able to land that first internship or that first job. I think that all I can say about that is it gets easier. So after that first rejection, it's not going to be easy. You're going to start questioning yourself, and that's something that everyone unfortunately goes through. But I think as you do it more, you start to think, well, maybe there's someone else who's more qualified, which is okay. Maybe there's someone else with the skills that I don't have, which is okay. So I would say that it's okay to fail. It's okay to get rejected. I still struggle with like taking things personally. So like if I apply for a job or I try to apply for a research grant or proposal and I get rejected, I still, my immediate thought is, oh, I'm not good enough. But then I try to like rethink that and be like, why am I thinking this? And I try to remind myself of all the good things that I've done and all my accomplishments. And that helps me take the rejection a little bit easier because I start to feel confident in myself and not depend on someone else's view. Because when someone is like looking at your resume or someone's looking at, your experience, they're probably like looking at it among like thousands of other candidates. They're probably just skimming it. So they can't really know the full you just by looking at your resume. So I think it's so important not to take it to heart when they, say that, oh, wait, what, not to take it to heart when they don't want to take you for that position. So I know it's hard because I struggle with it, but that would be my advice is to just go through that thought process. Okay, why am I thinking this way? What can I do to improve? And what are my accomplishments already? So I don't feel so I'm not so hard on myself.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Like developing a personal practice of self-affirmation is extremely critical. I'll give you an easy one that you can all do. In the morning when you go and brush your teeth, look in your own eyes in the mirror and just say, I love you. And for me, I've done this and it feels weird and it feels awkward, but if you truly love yourself or you treat yourself like you're somebody that you love, you'll carry yourself different. You will speak to yourself differently. And you might not even recognize how much you're beating yourself down or tearing yourself down throughout the day, but you have to remember that you are someone that you love. And if you are struggling with that self-acceptance or that self-affirmation, that self-love, then I would say I agree with Marianne, seeing a therapist, having someone that you can talk to about those inner struggles of, processing what you feel like is wrong or broken in yourself can give you the freedom that you need to show up in an amazingly confident way in every aspect of your life. I mean, it could be dating, it could be jobs, it could be just your hobbies, right? Your own contentment with who you are as a person. Exactly, respect, exactly. The love that you show yourself is the template that everyone else you interact with will use to interact with you. So if you walk around like you're hot stuff, like you're amazing, like you worked hard to get where you are, that you deserve, like they are so lucky to have your presence in the room, people will feel that energy. Even if, even if you're the most junior person there, like people will feel that energy and they will respect it and they will send it right back to you.
100%. Yeah. I think for me, like just the reps, like you have to get the reps. I know, one line that comes to mind in the movie is every level brings new devils. And so, things will get easier, but then you'll go up a level and things get hard again. And I think you just have to get the reps. And I know it's, cliche to say it, practice more, but something as, I guess, like public speaking, when I first started, I was doing community outreach. And the way I saw it was, if I can do community outreach, it's a win-win. I'm talking to these elementary kids about STEM and making it fun for them. I'm soaking my shirt in sweat, but it's okay. Like these kids don't care. I'm just there to show them a picture of Iron Man and practice my skills on public speaking. And so eventually I was able to level up to middle school, high school. Now academia, I can speak to my peers, but at the end of the day, getting those reps in is extremely important. And I think if you don't, find that tribe, that place of vulnerability and being able to give you a space to make mistakes, you're never going to get better. Being in this panel, like I'm surrounded by empowering women who are doing awesome badass things, and in my mind, like, should I be on this panel? And so like even that thought process of like, do I belong here, going through that iteration every single day and having that self-talk, like everybody brings a different perspective and a different life. And so when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, we want to be cool as everybody else, but we forget the idea of diversity. And so I know you started the question with, how do I feel more empowering? How do I get that confidence? Is you just have to get the reps and feel okay that in your mind you're, ranking number 4 in the panel, and then eventually you'll get to number 1, and then you'll go to different panels, right? And so that's kind of the idea, is you have to feel comfortable and make it fun. It's hard. I follow stoicism, and in my mind, like, things aren't personal. It is what it is. And so when someone looks at my resume, to Marianne's point, like, they're looking at my GPA, it's not good enough, they're going to pass me on. Like, it wasn't my job. It's that simple. And I go on to the next one. Someone else is going to get that opportunity. And so just giving yourself the permission to let things go, I think, helps build that confidence. So those are just my 10 cents or whatever I just dropped.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I don't know if anyone wanted to jump in.
I've got a meeting at 5, so I've got to drop, but thank you so much for the opportunity to connect with you. Don't hesitate to reach out social media or through whatever means you can find me. I'm definitely available on the interwebs. Evelyn, you're my hero and my inspiration. I will find you on LinkedIn so I can continue to learn from you. But everyone on the panel was excellent, and thanks again for hosting us.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and thank you to our wonderful, awesome panelists. You guys are so inspirational. And thank you for your honest answers. We appreciate you. And Evelyn, I don't know if you wanted to say.
No, I was just going to say thank you so much for your time, both the panelists and all of those in attendance. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. All right, sorry. I was like, I'll leave the meeting.
Still recording.